morning, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. My name is Alex Paul from InvestorStream, and I'll be your host today. Presenting for us this morning is TrivarX Limited Chief Operating Officer, Kai Sun, who to provide an update on the company's ongoing Phase 2 sleep signal analysis for current major depressive episode study, as well as the pathway to US FDA approval for TrivarX's proprietary MEB001 algorithm in connection with its stated strategy to commercialise AI-driven solutions to objectively screen for mental health conditions. You can also download a copy of the presentation by navigating to the handouts pane in the control panel. You can also send us some questions by navigating to the questions pane in the GoToWebinar control panel, or email them to me at alex@investorstream.com.au. Finally, a copy of the webinar will also be available on the TrivarX website and social media platforms later today. But for now, I'd like to throw it over to Kai to kick things off for us. Kai, the floor is yours.
Thanks for the introduction, Alex, and good morning, everyone. As the market is well aware, the company completed a very successful and strongly supported capital raise a few weeks ago. And with that, we've welcomed a number of new shareholders to the register. So I look forward to providing a refresher course on the company, discussing the headwinds we've made and our upcoming milestones. So just briefly about the company itself, a significant amount of work has gone into strategic positioning and corporate governance over the last 12 months since our board and myself got involved. We're capped at just over 12 mil. Fidelity Investments is one of our largest shareholders, and importantly, we have a board with deep medical knowledge and experience in commercializing medical technology in the US. We are a US-based medical technology company pioneering the use of AI and machine learning algorithms in the early detection of mental health conditions. We are in the process of commercializing our flagship algorithm, MEB1, which uses a wide range of biometric data taken from in-clinic sleep studies to provide the first objective test for current major depressive episode. Over the last year, we've been solely focused on building out our clinical data and establishing our regulatory path for what is a very novel test in the early detection of depression. As you may be aware, we have an extensive Phase 2 study, of which we are 80% through across 15 centres in the US. Had numerous meetings with the FDA, and off the back of a very positive engagement in Q1, are pursuing a de novo pathway. So to provide some background context, we're targeting a massive addressable market in the US. It has been well documented there is a mental health crisis, not just in the US, but globally, with the World Health Organization's current prediction that by 2030, depression will be the leading cause of disease burden globally. We know there is a problem, and although there are tools available, mental health misdiagnosis in the US is rife. One of the primary issues is these tools are based around subjective assessments and questionnaires on how patients are feeling, what symptoms they're experiencing, and how they're coping with medications. Today, patients see physicians and typically undergo a PHQ-9, which is a self-reported questionnaire used to screen for depression, before then being seen for further examination, typically done through a mini, which is a semi-structured interview conducted by a physician. Both of these tools, while great, are purely subjective, relying on both the patient and clinician's interpretations of symptoms. As such, shown by the slide here, we're seeing 50% of serious mental health disorders being untreated, and clinicians on average are getting the diagnosis wrong 46% of the time. While the data and literature also shows us is that 75% of people with diagnosed depression also suffer from disrupted sleep patterns. As such, our team set out to explore this robust relationship between sleep and mental health back in 2018 to help and address this epidemic. So our clinical team are world leaders in their fields and have paved a way forward in the industry on how to utilise and analyse biometric data from the brain and heart in conjunction with sleep. Led by Dr. DeFillo, our Chief Medical Officer, the TrivarX team has analysed over 1 million epochs, which are 30-second intervals in a patient's night of sleep, to discover and describe several proprietary and unique characteristics of people experiencing depression. This clinical research forms the foundation in which our proprietary algorithms have been developed. Dr. DeFillo's 25+ year career as a neurosurgeon and ongoing research of the brain has positioned him to find and describe these unique proprietary elements, while Massimiliano Grassi, our head of AI, has been able to take this clinical understanding and develop and code our algorithms, leveraging his own 20-year career in AI and PhD in psychology. Now, onto the technology itself, we have two key proprietary algorithms. The first is known as Stager, which is able to stage sleep and provide unique metrics on standard sleep data. The algorithm can stage the different stages of sleep, N1, N2, N3, REM, 4 times quicker than the current gold standard, which are human raters, and is the only staging tool that can provide heart rate and heart rate variability. Stager algorithm also forms part of the suite of algorithms comprised within MEB1, our flagship product. So MEB1 is the first objective test to screen for depression. It is an algorithm that takes a standard in-clinic sleep study file and utilizes AI and machine learning to identify a patient with depression with 86% sensitivity and 75% specificity based on patients' physical biomarkers. Both algorithms are underpinned by a core patent in the US, as well as a number of other patent families, and importantly, our own proprietary database that we have used to train our algorithms. So diving deeper into Stager, it acts as our door opener into the industry to assist in the eventual commercialization of MEB1, as well as the future expansion of our product suite. Training Stager improves MEB1 and is used to establish research programs with leading organisations to expand our data and discover other indications of use. Furthermore, these programs can provide the company with industry validation, research publications, and pilot sites needed for MEB1. Having established our first program with Northern Michigan Uni in Feb 2024, we're in discussions now with various other leading sleep medicine and behavioural health research bodies on both private and government funded projects, grants, and research into other mental illnesses and sleep disorders. Up until recently, the work on MEB1 has been somewhat under the radar as we fast approach a significant milestone for the company. Over the last few years, the company has built one of the world's largest databases of sleep study data labelled with patient mental health statuses in order to build MEB1, which is the first of its kind in the early detection of depression. This database in itself is incredibly valuable for the company due to the difficulty in getting these labels at the time a sleep test is conducted, and contains patients with other mental conditions beyond just depression. Feasibility was undertaken in phase 1, where we delivered exceptional data, and with phase 2 completion on the horizon, we're now in a position where board and management are very confident we have an algorithm that does what it's supposed to do. During this process, we've also commenced our regulatory journey, having our first pre-sub in Q1, where the FDA provided positive feedback around our clinical work and pathway. Our second Q-sub is scheduled in July this year, where we'll gain a further insight into what is needed for our pivotal study and formal submission. One of the key value propositions of our technology is that despite the compelling correlation between obstructive sleep apnea and depression, there is currently no screening carried out in any US sleep centres. And as such, our immediate opportunity here is to be the standard screening tool used by US health systems. So as a quick refresher on where we've come from, our phase 1 trial results demonstrated a strong sample size of 313 subjects across 12 different sleep centres. In this trial, patients completed a self-reported questionnaire, a PHQ-9, at the time of their sleep test, and we were able to confirm our assumptions that there is a strong correlation between sleep and mental illnesses, as our algorithm was able to identify 7 out of 10 patients with depression. Fast forward, we commenced phase 2 in September last year. We increased our site participation to 15 in order to increase our geographical diversity. And we introduced clinician-reported outcomes in our assessment by having clinicians on hand administering a mini, which is a semi-structured interview, and the gold standard diagnostic for depression. We completed some additional algorithm training after the completion of phase 1 and overlaid an initial population of 140 patients from phase 2 to see how we were tracking and de-risk the trial. As you can see, we were able to exceed our initial phase 1 results, which is extremely promising, given we are fast approaching the trial's completion. Today, we're over 300 patients and are planning to complete the study in line with our standard stated timeframe in the next few weeks, following which we will undertake another readout on what the final performance of the algorithm is with 400 patients. This will form the basis of our next engagement with the FDA and is a major catalyst for the company's clinical and regulatory pathways. Our board and management are very mindful commercialisation of MEB1 is on the horizon and confident on the rapid adoption through a number of go-to-market strategies. There are roughly 1 million sleep tests done each year in the US, and this number continues to grow steadily. Our team has been careful in building an algorithm that is agnostic to different existing sleep software, taking standardised sleep file data, which we can deploy as a SaaS model. As I mentioned earlier, currently there is no screening of mental illness done within sleep centres despite the well-documented relationship. In working closely and speaking with the leading sleep centres in the US, we know that by identifying and detecting depression earlier on, patients with sleep apnea can increase their adherence to prescribed treatment. This provides a near-term opportunity for us to help drive additional testing capabilities in these sleep centres and increase their own service offering and value proposition. Given our board's deep expertise in this sector, we are exploring commercial opportunities as we advance the regulatory pathway. Our go-to-market strategy will leverage our strong existing relationships with sleep centres we've undertaken trials with into pilot studies across multiple states upon FDA approval. We have and continue to publish in scientific journals, present our findings at industry conferences, as well as engage key opinion leaders in this space as we come closer to FDA submission and approval. Lastly, we're also exploring a number of algorithm licensing and distribution engagement opportunities in order to capture the very significant opportunity we have here. So in terms of what's next for the company, we have a number of value catalysts in the upcoming months. Firstly, we're expecting to complete our phase 2 by July and are aiming to provide a full readout of our performance and data in the next 8 to 10 weeks. We're in constant dialogue with the FDA and awaiting confirmation of our next Q-sub date after submitting our proposal in April. We're expecting to have this in-person meeting in July. On the research front, we're receiving numerous inbound inquiries from some of the leading sleep researchers in the field. A big focus for us on the next 3 months is to advance Stager and ultimately TrivarX's research program in collaboration with leading research universities and hospitals in the States, not only to expand our own findings, but to continue to hone in on our own data, algorithm training, and to form the basis for clinical expansion and other indications of use. All in all, we made a lot of progress in establishing and consolidating our technology off the back of our phase 1. We're fast approaching our phase 2, which will strengthen and consolidate what we know works. And we're confident we have the momentum in the industry to capitalise on commercialisation opportunities over the next 6 to 12 months. Thank you very much for your time and happy to take some questions now, Alex.
Thanks, Kai. As you mentioned, we've had a number of questions come through. Feel free to keep sending those through, by the way, through the questions pane in the GoToWebinar control panel. Kai, to start, the presentation states that TrivarX has built one of the world's largest databases of sleep study data labelled with patient mental health status. Can you just talk us through just how large is this database and how is it being used to advance MEB1?
Yeah, undoubtedly. Across our historical SADB and SAMD trials, once we complete phase 2, we will have over 900 labelled patient sleep tests. As I mentioned earlier, this is incredibly valuable as being used to train MEB1, but also contains valuable information on other mental health conditions like bipolar, PTSD, for the clinical team to expand our product suite and develop additional algorithms down the track.
Thanks, Kai. So what has the feedback been from research partners that have deployed Stager or are considering it to date?
They really like the unique features of Stager. It is purely a research product for us at this point in time, but we are able to provide probabilistic analysis, which in behavioural and sleep medicine is important for the potential of sleep transition. Without getting too technical, we can provide unique insights from sleep study data that no one else in the field can. In particular, heart rate and heart rate variability are incredibly insightful, as there is always a connection between the brain and the heart. And the only way to measure that connection is how the autonomic nervous system modulates throughout sleep staging.
So on slide 9, there is a box under clinical which includes the term pivotal. Can you just explain what a pivotal study is and if this forms the basis of the company's de novo submission?
Yeah, look, our pivotal study will give us the clinical validation to submit our FDA market approval, and essentially demonstrates the efficacy and performance of the algorithm required to be approved and commercialized.
Thanks, Kai. So in regards to regulatory approval, is the company seeking US FDA clearance prior to embarking on approvals in Europe and Australia?
Yeah, we're targeting FDA clearance first. CE and TGA will follow after. Our trials have obviously been completed in the US, our team's based in the US, and it serves as the largest market opportunity for us on the near-term commercialization front.
And so has there been one sleep centre which has demonstrated more testing during phase 2 than any of the others?
Enrollments differed over the last few weeks, but typically our Texas sites have had a higher enrollment rate just due to population size.
So what has the industry feedback been to date on MEB1?
The feedback's been strong and supportive. We've run our own surveys and market research, and shows that all the primary care physicians are in favour of screening at the time of PSGs. They all see this as a clinical benefit. The more you know, the better you manage the patient, the outcome is better, the adherence to treatment is better. No one in primary care has said no to this. Clinicians understand the issues with patient disclosure, and the sleep centres, more importantly, see the benefits in implementing this technology for sure.
Thanks, Kai. Now, just circling back on Stager, what feedback has been provided from Michigan University?
Again, similar to what I mentioned earlier, the fact that we can provide probabilistic analysis between each of those different sleep stages is of significant value to them. They're running their own research and essentially wanting to run data through Stager in order to find those insights that they currently can't get.
And so upon completion of the phase 2 trial, how shortly after that can investors start to expect results?
Investors can expect an algorithm performance readout within a few weeks, but a full statistical and clinical analysis of the phase 2 trial is probably within 6 to 8 weeks.
So I guess further to that, what are the company's thoughts heading into the next resubmission meeting?
We're really excited. I mean, we've put a lot of work into consolidating and building this algorithm and having the sort of clinical support behind it. We're going to speak to the FDA around what's needed in this pivotal trial and establish what we're being tested up against, as well as how we can structure and propose our pivotal study to essentially get across the line as quickly and easily as possible for us.
Thanks, Kai. A couple of questions to finish. What stage are the discussions with trial partners at? And what are these partners waiting for before establishing an agreement which can be released to market?
Yeah, I mean, typically with a lot of these research bodies, we are somewhat at the whim of their own internal politics and systems that they need to get through in order for approval. But we're in very advanced discussions, and it's a matter of them submitting on their behalf to their IRBs, for example, or them getting the necessary clearances from above as well. We've demoed stages to a bunch of different groups and received really positive feedback on wanting to utilise and collaborate together. Like I mentioned, Archie and Massey are real trailblazers in this space around how they can analyse and how they can identify things within the clinical front, as well as the technical expertise on the algorithm side. So we're very confident over the next sort of 3 to 6 months that we can start consolidating these. And we'll be visiting the Sleep conference in Houston in a couple of weeks as well, meeting with these partners, and hopefully being able to provide some agreements signed to the market when the time comes.
Thanks, Kai. And just to finish, again on the completion of phase 2 in the coming weeks, when is the next engagement with the FDA?
Yeah, so we submitted our request for a Q-sub in April, and typically it's 60 to 90 days for the meeting to be set. So we're expecting it to be in July, but awaiting confirmation from them. I believe they may have a backlog is the last correspondence we've had.
Thanks, Kai. Well, look, that's all the time we have today. Thank you all for joining me, and I'd also like to thank Kai for presenting and taking the time to answer some questions. As I mentioned before, a recording of the webinar will be on the TrivarX website and social media platforms later today. Kai, before I let you go, do you have any final comments to leave with us today?
No, thank you very much, everyone, for your time. I'm really excited, as is the board and management, on the next couple of weeks. Particularly around this phase 2 trial. We've put a lot of work into really honing in on this strategy and getting the feedback we need to take this to the next phase. So thank you very much for listening, and hope to speak with you guys soon.
Beautiful. Well, that wraps it up for us here. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.
Thanks.